we're ready to go. Okay. Welcome everyone on our television audience, those of joining on Zoom, others watching, our interpreter. Our meetings are rebroadcast, presented at 7 p.m. every Tuesday evening on Channel 22. Video of the meeting can also be viewed at the Disability Commission's website at www.cityofomaha.org. Then click on the Mayor's Office, then click on Disabilities Commission. I am not Mark Smith. I am Megan Walls, the Vice Chair of the Mayor's Commission for Citizens with Disabilities. I'm filling in in the chair role today, as Mark is not available to be here. The purpose of the commission is to promote quality of life, accessibility, and equity in all aspects related to the City of Omaha on behalf of and in cooperation with the citizens of Omaha who experience disability. In our capacity, we advise the mayor, the city council, and city department heads, and other City of Omaha personnel on issues of access, representation, employment, housing, and quality of life affecting city citizens with disabilities and their respective families. We serve as a resource for Omaha citizens with disabilities and their families to express concerns and resolutions regarding issues affecting them. We publicize to the citizens of Omaha the role of the Mayor's Commission for Citizens with Disabilities and the resources available to assist citizens with disabilities, employers, housing representatives, business owners, engineers and architects, and others who have a role in bettering the life of Omaha citizens. We promote awareness to the general public of the capabilities, needs, and desires of citizens with disabilities. We publicly recognize the efforts of employers, businesses, schools, organizations, and others who have demonstrated outstanding support of programs and services for disabled citizens. We serve to advocate for accessibility issues and implement plans and projects to improve services for citizens with disabilities. And we review and implement plans and projects for advocating services for citizens with disabilities. Okay, so that is why we are here. We had a pre-meeting internally before this where we discussed the need to grow our commission, and we have some good potential candidates being reviewed, and we worked on planning the rest of the year for our speakers. I introduced myself. I said I'm Megan Walls, the Vice Chair of the Commission. In my professional capacity, I do training and consulting through my business Assistology that focuses on accessibility and inclusion, specifically to benefit the disability community and Omaha as a whole. And
I am Stephanie Scavdahl. I work with Outlook Enrichment. We provide enrichment opportunities, employment, and independent living services to those who are blind and visually impaired.
She's also our secretary. So have a pen and paper handy. If we have time at the end, we're going to try to share any announcements. We did not have a quorum in our earlier meeting, nor do we have one now due to conflicts. And therefore, we could not approve our minutes from the previous meeting. All right, with all of that business out of the way, I am going to welcome our presenter today. Kevin Carter he's a city planner in transportation and data in the Long Range Planning Division, here to talk to us about the work that you're doing. So welcome.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Yeah, I'm going to be pulling up some slides here. So one second. Okay. Yeah, so as you just said, I'm a city planner with our long range planning section in the planning department. A lot of what I focus on is transportation planning and complete streets, and also kind of development data reporting. So today I want to talk to you all about the Connect to Omaha Active Mobility Master Plan. This is a plan effort that is looking at pedestrians and bicyclists as well as other active forms of transportation in the city, such as scooters, skateboards, people using wheelchairs or other mobility devices, and This effort is something that launched in the last couple of months. It's going to take about a year to complete, but I'm going to go into the details of all of that here. So first off, I'll start with an overview of what this plan is, who's creating it, and what the timeline is. The purpose is to create a comprehensive vision for a more complete and connected network for walking, biking, and other active mobility travel modes in Omaha. We are going to be doing an in-depth evaluation of the current active mobility network, also gathering public feedback to get the views and opinions and desires regarding active mobility needs in Omaha. And we aim to get input from a broad and diverse set of groups that represent all different areas of Omaha. And then this plan will result in lists of policies, programs, and infrastructure projects, as well as strategies to guide the planning and implementation of those projects, and a phasing plan that will basically set out the timelines for implementing the proposed projects. So the team leading this plan effort includes the planning department, but also we have involvement from other city departments, notably Public Works. We have the city's Vision Zero coordinator, Jeff Subcheck, and our parking and mobility manager. We have a planner from our Parks Department, and we also have the Metropolitan Area Planning Agency involved in this effort. They are funding a significant portion of the project and also providing some technical support with planning work related to this project. We have contracted with 2 consulting firms. Landis Evans is based in Florida, and they specialize in basically active transportation, so walking, biking, etc. And then JEO is a local firm that does all kinds of different transportation and land use planning work. And then we've also contracted with Bike Walk Nebraska to support some of our outreach efforts. So the schedule for this plan effort is on the screen here, and the kickoff meeting for the project was back in May, and we've been working through the existing conditions analysis. We have started to attend various community events with pop-ups to get some initial feedback from people, and then we're planning to put out a survey and then hold some public open houses in November. And development of the plan and all the recommendations will continue through the spring and summer next year, with the hope of adopting this plan in fall of next year. So some background on this effort, why we're doing this plan now, and how does it relate to other efforts. We applied for funding to basically put this whole effort together in 2021, and we were awarded that funding last year, and then basically, this funding is through MAPA. It supports plans and studies that support compact development and transportation options in the region, and it's part of their Heartland 2050 initiative, which includes the guiding principles of equity, inclusivity, efficiency, and local control regional benefit. So our application had to demonstrate that we would meet those principles. And then the city has also done a number of different plans that include some aspect of pedestrian and bicycle recommendations. So we have our master plan that has different elements. Some notable ones would be the transportation element and the concept element that have some significant goals regarding making Omaha more pedestrian and bike friendly. And then there are a number of different area plans and studies that have looked at specific corridors. And one issue with all of these is that many of them are very limited in their scope, and then they we've never had a single plan that is focused on active transportation in Omaha, and this plan will help us to consolidate all the recommendations of these past plans to resolve their inconsistencies and address all those gaps in the scope of those previous plans. And some examples of statements from our master plan dealing with pedestrians and active transportation. So our concept element calls for a pedestrian and open space system that will facilitate pedestrian and other non-mechanized movement between areas of the city and link low-density residential and high-density mixed-use areas together. And then the first goal of our transportation element of the master plan is to provide balanced options for enhanced mobility. It acknowledges that automobiles are the dominant form of transportation in the city, but mobility involves more than moving vehicles on roadways. A balanced system has options for driving, walking, bicycling, and public transit. And so this plan will help to put a focus on walking, bicycling, and other kind of people-powered modes of transportation. Some examples of maps of recommended facilities from these past plans shows that, yes, we've had all these plans over the years, but there are inconsistencies and gaps, and many things have changed since these plans were developed. There are also other related recent efforts, such as the Chamber's Connect Go transportation strategy, the MAPA long-range transportation plan, Metro Transit's Metro Next plan that looks at the next 10 years of improvements to the transit system, and the Urban Core Strategic Plan, also led by the Chamber, and then also the recent pilot project on Harney Street. These are all efforts that definitely relate to active transportation, and this plan effort will hopefully bring together all the data and recommendations from those efforts and set the vision going forward. And we also have ongoing efforts at the city with our Vision Zero action plan, which is kind of happening concurrently with this plan effort. So we're coordinating with Jeff in Public Works on that, and we also have a draft Complete Streets design guide that we are looking to adopt in the next several months, and the planned climate action plan that's led by the mayor's office. Just the first phase of this project, as I mentioned, is our existing conditions analysis. A big component of that is a demand and gaps analysis, which involves these steps. First, we have to define what our study network is. If we're going to do an in-depth analysis of conditions on roads in Omaha, it would be a little too much to look at our entire street network. We have about, I don't know what it is actually, but it's somewhere around 5,000 or something centerline miles of streets in Omaha. So we opted to do an in-depth analysis of our arterial and collector system, as well as streets that are already defined as bike routes and streets that are in our historic and suburban boulevard system. That doesn't mean we won't consider recommendations on other streets, but those are the streets that we are collecting data on as far as like their geometry and potential for including facilities improvements. And the next step would be a pedestrian bicycle level service evaluation. I'll get into what that means in a second. And then the last is a demand analysis to kind of figure out what areas have the highest potential for active mobility trips, regardless of the infrastructure that's there today. pedestrian and bicycle level service evaluation is a model that was developed actually by some of the consultants that are on our team, but it's used by the U.S. Federal Highway Administration, and it's based on their peer-reviewed research. But it's basically something that measures bicyclists and pedestrians' level of comfort or safety when traveling along a street segment, and then it rates that from a scale of A to F. I don't want to go into too much detail, but this is the preliminary analysis for Omaha, and as you can see, a lot of our major arterials, especially in West Omaha, are rated quite poorly, E or F. As you get closer into the city center, or inside the I-680 kind of area, you see a lot more C and D, and then in the downtown area, you see some more A and B. So that's largely a reflection of the presence and width of the sidewalks, the speed and volume of traffic, and the amount of separation between the sidewalk and the street. And then this is the breakdown of the ratings by mile. And again, this is all the initial analysis. We'll have opportunities to get people's reactions to this and see if it makes sense and it lines up with people's expectations. This is the bicycling level of service conditions analysis. It's kind of a similar story, although we see more ease throughout, like everything outside of downtown. And then some sections of A or B, but mostly on our lower traffic streets or streets that have bike lanes. So here's the breakdown, and also reminding that this is for the mostly arterials and collectors. So we do see some very poor ratings. And the third step of that demand and gaps analysis is the demand analysis. There are 3 different types of demand we're looking at. The revealed demand is just the existing count data that we can get. That can include from actual counters like on our trails, or from temporary counters that are placed on the roadway, or it could also be data from, for example, the scooter pilot program, from GPS tracks, from trips that people are making, as well as Strava. That's the top right map you see, is a heat map of activities that users record through Strava. But more important to us is actually latent demand, because that is, while revealed demand shows you where people are walking or biking or using other active modes, we want to know where they would be walking or biking if we had better conditions, and that's what latent demand tells us. It is using land use data and information about different destinations to model how many trips could be generated in a particular area, regardless of what infrastructure is there today. And that will generate, basically heat maps showing the areas of highest potential demand. So that will help us with project prioritization. And then stated demand is basically what we hear from people through the public engagement process, through our online surveys, through our mapping activities, both at events and through the survey. And that helps us to understand kind of where our latent demand analysis is missing information. So there may be areas where people want to go on recreational rides or do organized group rides, that sort of thing, and a latent demand model can't really capture all that. There could be also areas where people want to walk or bike or walk or bike or use another mode, but the infrastructure presents them, and that helps to fill the gaps in our revealed demand data from counts. And then I mentioned we're doing a demand and gaps analysis, but I want to emphasize the gaps are not entirely just based on the bicycle level of service and pedestrian level of service conditions. It can also be gaps caused by missing infrastructure like curb ramps or obstructed sidewalks. We're not necessarily going to be able to do an inventory of every single street in the city to find all of those, but we're going to use the data that we can to try to identify those issues, and also through our engagement efforts identify those. And then it can include things like major highways or waterways or barriers that don't have enough crossings, and a gap could also be an area that has high pedestrian and bicycle involved crashes, and or an area that lacks connectivity to destinations. Transportation disadvantaged areas are something that is federally defined, but it's mostly based on socioeconomic characteristics, but those are kind of areas where people don't have the means to access a lot of the transportation opportunities that wealthier areas have, like, and they're more dependent on these other forms of transportation like transit and walking and biking. And then just general nodes of activity on a citywide basis that don't have good connections between one another are also gaps that we need to be, that this plan will be trying to address. So our public engagement process is going to be trying to answer the questions of where we should be in terms of our walking, biking, and other active mobility conditions, and where and what should we prioritize for improvements. So there's both online and in-person aspects to the engagement process. We have a project website that recently launched. I'll share that with you in a second. And then we will be posting about opportunities on social media on our planning department social media accounts. And we also have an online survey. And then we are hosting community stakeholder committee meetings, as well as attending community events with basically having a pop-up, a tent and table with state kind of activities for people to provide their feedback. And then we will hold a series of open houses in November that will be open to the public. So the website is made in ArcGIS story maps, but this is the QR code that if you wanted to point your phone at this screen, it should open the website. Otherwise, you can go to the planning department website and click on biking in Omaha, and then the first link on that page would take you to the plan efforts website. And right now it is mostly placeholders on the website. We will have a survey posted there soon. There is a place where people can sign up to get email updates. And yeah, the survey, as I mentioned, we're finalizing that, and we'll have that public soon. And we're aiming to gather people's current walking and bicycling habits, their expectations about the quality of conditions, and locations and types of the desired improvements that they want to see. And we would like to have as many people take the survey as possible. So, and then our community stakeholder committee is going to be around 30 representatives from different agencies and organizations. So that can include agencies that help us implement the plan, like the Papio Missouri NRD, NDOT, even staff from different city departments and the city council, as well as other community organizations and advocacy groups. We're scoped to hold 3 meetings. We may call an extra meeting toward the end of the process to kind of walk through the developed plan, but at this point we're planning on 3. And the first meeting will be, well, it was supposed to be at the end of this week, but we may need to reschedule due to Hurricane Ian interfering with the travels and work schedule of our lead consultants on this project. But so we have attended several pop-up events so far: Dundee Day, Chalk Art Festival, Centerfest, and then we plan to attend several more. Especially once the survey is live, we want to be out there directing people to take the survey, and then also getting some of their feedback. We've been asking people what their what's the single most important thing that they think the city can be doing to improve walking and biking conditions, and so we're getting a lot of good feedback from that. We are scoped to hold 3 open houses in different areas of the city. The locations and the dates of those are to be determined, but they'll likely be over the course of 1 week in November. And we would like to be able to inform attendees about the project and present the findings from our existing conditions analysis to get their reactions and their input for refining them, and then also gather feedback from people to shape the overall goals and the priorities of the plan. And so getting to the plan document itself, as I mentioned, the goals will be defined through the engagement process. I've shown an example set of goals on the right side of this slide, but this is from Lincoln's bike plan. So it's broad principles that the plan would aim to achieve. And then the plan will include what we're calling a network improvements plan. That's basically the infrastructure project recommendations, and those recommendations would fall into 3 different categories: trails and shared use paths. Second is on-street bike facilities, and third is pedestrian enhancements. That can also include crossing improvements for multiple modes. So pedestrian enhancements isn't just like sidewalks, but yeah, we'll have the highest priority projects have some high-level cost estimates and detailed lists of their kind of constraints and the feasibility considerations. And then we will have maps that include kind of the full network build out of trail and bike improvements, which would basically be like a 25-year kind of master plan, but the project list would be kind of the priority for the next 10 or so years. And then we'll also be developing recommendations around policies and programs. So policy examples can include changes to our municipal code, as well as some other guiding documents. I've listed some examples here, like our Complete Streets Design Guide, Traffic Calming Manual. I won't read through all of these, but and then program areas can be things like transportation demand management, which are strategies that basically incentivize people to not drive, basically, and that can include things like pass programs that employers provide, or improvements to bicycle parking and that sort of thing. And then safe routes to school programs, our shared micromobility programs. We have a bike share system, Heartland B-Cycle, and we also have the private companies that have e-scooters here in town. And then overall, I think a big topic of conversation will probably be how we build out our sidewalks and address areas where there are missing sidewalks. So lastly, we'll have an implementation plan. This will basically be a matrix that identifies these different projects and policy and program change recommendations, and prioritizes them and includes like the people responsible for implementing them, and then we'll also have a summary of maintenance costs and best practices for different types of infrastructure treatments. And that's all I had for you, but if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
I super appreciate you coming down and sharing all this. I found it really interesting, and as someone who studied math in their past, the latent need, I was like, I actually know what that means. I did just have a couple of questions. So there looked like there gonna be a lot of opportunities for community members to give their feedback, their input, and share their experience. I would first say I would invite you to stay in touch with the commission, for how we can connect to our networks and get the word out. But I know, and I will preface all of this with, I know you were very early in all of this, but how can you envision us supporting what you're doing and the efforts that you're undertaking, especially in this early discovery phase?
Yeah, so I actually have put together like a short questionnaire that I was gonna email to you all after this, that I was hoping you could share with your networks, that kind of has a few questions about basically active mobility infrastructure in Omaha, particularly as it relates to people in the disability space in Omaha. So that would be one way, and that questionnaire will include a place where people can provide their email if they want to be involved. One idea that we had talked about is maybe we want to have like a kind of a focus group conversation. So, individuals with disability would be one kind of focus group area that we'd be interested in convening. So if you are interested in participating or know people who would be, that'd be something to share with me. Yes, and I believe Megan, I sent the invite out to our community stakeholder committee meeting. So I was hoping you'd be able to be involved in that. I understand if schedules don't work out, but I would like to, if it doesn't work out and you want to have a follow-up conversation, I'd be happy to meet with you anytime.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, I am intending to. I wouldn't hate if you have to reschedule, but I'm working on making it work.
All right.
And then you had mentioned that I'm probably gonna have the name wrong, but downtown to midtown, is that
the market to midtown?
Market to midtown?
Yeah.
So you said it was a pilot program. So like when does it end, and like what's the gap between that ending and this?
So I found out that the decision was made to not continue the pilot project basically the same day it was public. So that's a decision of the mayor's office and Public Works, the Public Works director. I think that where this plan comes in is we're going to be looking at both the data from that pilot and all of the other data we're collecting, like the latent demand analysis and the conditions analysis, and determining what are the best opportunities for protected bikeways in the urban core, and that may it very well may be that it recommends that a permanent bikeway on Harney Street be constructed in the future. Of course, all of these recommendations depend on funding and, yeah, basically the support to implement them. And
That makes sense. And my last question, at least initially, is, and if you if you don't know, just say you don't know. But
sure.
you know, as you're picturing this all coming together, how do you envision engaging developers in the conversation? I'm thinking of like all of the massive development and kind of like, I don't want to call them neighborhoods, but you have like Millwork Commons that's developing, and you have Southside Canopy, and you have Heartwood Preserve, and then more and more of them, and they're all kind of spearheaded under these like developers mapping things out, working with the city on zoning, blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
But how do you envision the development company getting involved so that all of these pieces are part of their initial planning, and so that they don't end up without sidewalks, without connectivity, without access to the public transit once it's all put together?
Right. Well, that is one reason why it's really important that we have a detailed master plan, because a lot of the times, like we review the development plans and their subdivision agreements, basically, to make sure that they align with our master plan. And so having this plan gives us something to basically be like, well, there's supposed to be a trail connection here. It's in our master plan, and it gives us a way to kind of enforce that. Yeah, when it comes to like sidewalks, we require sidewalks on all public streets now. There's a lot of areas of Omaha that were built when we did not require that. And so then there's also issues where in the older parts of Omaha, we don't have a lot, public funding for maintaining sidewalks. It's primarily on the property owners. So, yeah. So with new development, like the sidewalks is an issue that's easier, but it's kind of those older areas that
Going back. Yep.
a big problem.
Sorry, and I just thought of one more question.
Sure.
So, as you were talking about mapping out the kind of the scoring the sidewalks and the streets across the city, how can what's the best way for the public to let you know, like if I'm out taking my dog for a walk and there's a pole directly in the middle of the sidewalk, or there's like, is there one channel that people should go to report those things for this purpose, or what do you recommend?
I would recommend reporting them to the mayor's hotline, because a lot of times those issues are kind of like location specific or maintenance type issues that need to get pushed to the right department or to respond to. And when it comes to like that level of detail, I don't know that this plan is going to be able to address those. We would probably just end up having to send them to the department or division that's responsible for those things. But when it comes to like broad issues like just sidewalk obstructions in general being a problem in an area, like that could be something that you would report in the survey responses or on the input maps that we're going to have built into the survey, to help identify areas where people want to see improvements and like prioritize certain streets for like reconstruction or yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I will stop peppering you. Sure. Do you have any questions, Stephanie?
How is this different than Connect Go?
Good question. Connect Go is led by the Chamber of Commerce. The Go in it is Greater Omaha. Um, Connect Omaha is kind of our brand developed for this plan effort. We purposely made it sound a lot like Connect Go because the goals of this effort are so aligned with what the Connect Go strategy is all about, which is basically like improving options for all modes of transportation. And yeah, but the fact it's Connect Omaha because it's specific to the city of Omaha. Yeah, does that help?
So the difference is if I understand correctly, the goals and the intentions are very aligned, but it's just the difference is who's driving it.
Yes, that's
Okay.
that's true.
Did you have any? No? Awesome. Well, I am out of questions. So I really
Sure. I did
appreciate.
see Jared's comment.
Oh.
Sorry. So, yeah, we are using their data and their survey. Their questions are higher level questions about would you walk or would you bike, given the options, basically, given if you had improved infrastructure. The questions that we'll be asking are going to be more about what's your expectations for the level of quality of infrastructure, and what are the specific locations within the city of Omaha that you feel should be prioritized. And that's a level of detail that Connect Go didn't quite get into.
Does that answer it, Jared? Or do you have any follow-ups? Cool. Thanks for the
Thanks.
details. Really appreciate your time. For those that tune in later or listen, if they have questions, what's the best way to reach out? I know you mentioned the website for some information, but if they directly want to get in contact with the project.
Yeah, you can email me. My email is kevin.carter@cityofomaha.org. And that email is also on the website. So, but I will send you a link to the website and that questionnaire that I was talking about, and if you wouldn't want to send out to.
Yeah, we've got a
list.
Facebook page and our own networks we can use for sure.
All right.
And don't be surprised if we invite you back for an update next year.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Okay, moving on to old business. I don't know that we have any. New business. I think we're still working on adding members and planning out our guest presenters for the next couple of months. Our next meeting, I'm getting ahead of myself, but our next meeting is October 24th. And we have a little bit of time still, so some announcements. The only one I really have that I can think of is that for candidates who identify as having a disability, or service providers that support candidates identifying with a disability in their job placement and search processes, there is a virtual free to attend workshop called Boost Your Job Search that utilizes the platform Jobsability, which is a jobs board specifically geared towards candidates with disabilities and inclusive employers. That event is on October 12th from 1:30 to 2:30, and registration can be found at the Center for Disability Inclusion.org. That's the only one
I do want to Outlook Enrichment. We have quite a few events going on in the month of October for those who are experiencing vision loss at any point. So we right now have adaptive CrossFit going on at our building. October 1st, we have a shooting range event that you can register for online. We have some cooking classes coming up. Our peer support group just started back up this month too. And we also, at the end of the month, have a Native American arts class happening where you learn how to make dream catchers. So all of those can be found on our website, outlooken.org, under our events tab. Just a lot of fun stuff. Most things don't even cost anything, or they're minimal $10 as a registration fee. So if you're interested in that, please go on our website.
Wonderful. So thank you to our sign interpreter and for Cox Communications for taping and broadcasting. And this says Cox Channel 18 every Tuesday at 7. But I've said in another place it says 22. So it's Channel 22, 22 at 7 o'clock on Tuesdays. Our next meeting scheduled for October 24th. We are working on narrowing down our presenter, likely related to Disability Employment Awareness Month, which is October. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you, Jared and Keith and Mariana, for joining us online.